Opal, how are you doing? The lady who keeps us informed about immigration matters and about what is happening in the United States. And when she ready to she fly to another country and she tell us about what's happening in that country on Travel Talk. Good afternoon, Opal Lee. How you do?
I'm doing very wonderful. Good afternoon, Vernon, and of course, good afternoon as well to your listeners.
Yes, no, I don't have any other excitement. I've been able to keep abreast of what is happening, but it seems as if every day you have some breaking news up north. Anything?
Yes, there's one thing recently that has been on the tip of everyone's tongues and in their minds is
Yes.
regarding the 6-3 decision that was recently in favor of President Donald Trump with regards to the birthright, the
Oh, the
U.S.
birthright. Yes.
birthright.
Yes.
So I don't think we got to speak about it last week. But here we are. So the court, President Trump is very happy right now that of that decision. And just to be clear, it doesn't really say right now that everybody who's born in the U.S. from here on to to a mother that's unlawful or on a visiting visa, it doesn't mean that that person is not going to be considered a U.S. citizen because the court did not really rule on the merits. However, what they did do is the Supreme Court limit the power of federal judges to block executive orders nationwide. And so, in a nutshell, what this means is that only those people who had brought the lawsuit are right now protected. So, if you, as a parent, believe that your child could be affected or your newborn
Mhm.
could be affected, it means you will now have to bring a claim yourself. And because what they're saying is that the lower court couldn't just do a nationwide injunction, meaning for everybody, even those who never filed or who was not
Yes, yes.
named. So it does not extend to those who are unnamed. So either they're going to do a class action suit to
Mhm.
encompass a certain class, or every single person that is affected, or you're going to have to bring your own lawsuits in order to benefit. And just so everybody knows what this means. And by the way, President Trump, from within the 30 days, he can go ahead now and say start the deportation for those kids who are now born in the United States to parents who were visiting. And this is for, they were what we call anchor babies, Vernon. Remember back in
Mhm.
the days, there were a lot of people who have been on their tourist visa. Because they want their child to be a U.S. citizen or to be considered
Mhm.
a U.S. citizen. They would come here, when they were 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant. Sometimes they would hide the stomach so that the Customs and Border Patrol don't see that they're pregnant. And all along, they had the intention of just having the child here and then going home afterwards. But at the end of the day, they had a child, a U.S. citizen child. And so, what President Donald Trump and his administration is doing is trying to cut that out. And also, though, and I want you to know, it's not only Jamaicans, because most of those people who were doing that were actually Europeans. They made a big money out of this, or there's, a lot of hotels were advertising this, for them
Mhm.
to where they would have those Europeans, for example, come in, they would put them in hotels, they'd come in on their tourist visas, had the child, and then they would go back to their country. So I don't want people to think only Jamaicans or Caribbean people were doing this. Sometimes, though, you have people who you didn't plan it. You had an emergency. Maybe the baby, you came here to do some last minute shopping, Vernon, for your kids, for your newborn, right? And some shopping, and you were 6 months or 7 months pregnant, and you had every intention of going back to your home
Right.
country. But guess what? The baby born premature, you had some difficulty, and you had the child here. So
I'm
back
going
in
to
the
be
days,
awful now. The baby probably decided that he wanted to be an American.
maybe that's what it
I'm
is.
being terrible and awful now.
And that's what it is. And so normally that child would be considered a U.S. citizen, but what the persons who oppose it are saying, no, 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 no. You're just visiting. The child should be take the nationality of the parent. So if you were visiting from Jamaica, the child's supposed to be a Jamaican, not because the child was just born on on U.S. soil. Same thing goes for if you're here and you came here unlawfully and you've been here, you're undocumented, and you have a child. Same thing. That child
Mhm.
will, if Donald Trump gets his way
Mhm.
permanently, it will be the child would not be considered a U.S. citizen unless the father of that child was a United States citizen. So that means in all this travel and everything coming here, and you're going to be visiting and traveling, if you are planning on having a child here in the United States, and if you overstay a visa and you're gonna run off, which we're not advocating for that, but just make sure that child that you're going to have, make sure the father is a U.S. citizen. That don't sound right, right, Vernon? Because now
No.
we're saying make sure you only go to U.S. citizen fathers, because if the father is a unlawful like yourself as a mother, that child now, if Donald Trump gets his way, will not be considered
So
a United
unlawful
States
plus
citizen.
unlawful equal unlawful. But if you have
All right.
unlawful plus lawful, then you could end up being lawful. But you
All
know
right.
what crossed my mind, Opal? Suppose you are in the United States and God forbid the mother, who is not an American, should die in child's birth. There's no father, I don't even know who the father is.
Hmm.
How do you now force another country to accept that child as a citizen of that country?
No, but
Child,
automatically, remember though, sorry to
mm,
cut you, but automatically it's going to be based on the mother's nationality. So if that was a Jamaican, how they're going to look at it, that child was Jamaican. So I mean, it sounds harsh. Okay, how are you going to find the family members of that child to remove that child? So maybe, advocates are going to say keep that child here until they're on, but that child is not going to get US citizenship. And so
mm.
eventually, when that child is, becomes of age, that child could be opened up to being deported or removed.
But how would you force another country? The mother has died. Who would now apply for citizenship for that country when there's no mother? The father
But
is not
but
known
the
as a
mother's a
Jamaican.
Jamaican. The mother's
So
a Jamaican. So
how do
if
you
the mother's
prove
a
that?
Jamaican, because the Jamaican, the child that you said the mother came in, of course we will know how the mother's a Jamaican. How did she enter? She must have entered with a Jamaican passport, right? To enter the US. So then they will
Actually,
contact the Jamaican consulate.
actually, I've heard stories of persons who have traveled to these states and they are not Jamaican on false
Oh.
documents. It could become very complex, you know.
It could be. So I guess they would
Yeah.
just use on the mother's travel documents then. So yes, you're right. There could be some fraud or anything, but
Yes.
they will at minimum they will look to that parent or that
Hmm.
mother's travel documents or identification documents to determine the nationality of that child. But it's not only the US alone, because there's certain
Yes,
countries
yes, yes.
that actually do this right now. I think some
Hmm.
of our sister Caribbean countries as well.
Hmm.
Not because you're born there, they doesn't mean that you are a national of that country, right? So,
That
but
is a
we'll
very
see.
interesting position, but as you said before, one could probably have a class suit because my
Correct.
understanding that birthright issue is something which is enshrined in
In
the
our U.S.
Constitution.
Constitution, correct. And so, of course, people are challenging the wording of it, the
Mm.
part that says, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So, everybody that's born there and subject. So, I guess the Trump administration is saying a visitor coming here is not subject to this jurisdiction. But I guess that's why you have the legal minds who are going to be
Yes.
arguing back and forth and see how that should be
Hmm.
interpreted. And
I
that
never
is
can tell.
something.
Opal might get involved.
Oh, here we go. And that is something that the Supreme Court will get to decide, I think, later on this year or next year. So
Yeah.
everybody is going to, be holding fast to wait for that ruling.
And another concern is about that holding area in Florida in the middle of the swamp. And I've heard some persons likening it onto concentration camps, but
Mhm.
I don't
It's
know. That's
Alcatraz, correct. It is unconscionable that
yes.
we're at this point where we're treating people who may have been seeking a better life. And I should tell you, America is a melting pot. America was built by immigrants. And so the bad part about it is that many of those, or majority of those
Mhm.
people right now that are being detained and who are likely to be even in this Alcatraz, as they are calling it,
Yes.
they don't have any criminal record. They don't have any state record. So they're not even a threat to the United States. And we're treating these people as though they're criminals or,
Yes, yes.
in this inhumane
Mhm.
way. So it is
Well,
atrocious.
I will tell you what my prediction. is, I've said it already, that the more a country becomes developed, it is the more they're going to rely on labor in certain categories, because the more the gross domestic product increases and the each person per capita income increases, they're not going to want to do certain type of labor. So interesting days are ahead.
Correct.
Interesting. So I see that we'll have to continue to importing labor from other countries. And then, so that's interesting. Well, we have another 3 minutes left. Any other point you want to make and to share with us before you tell us how to make contact with you, Opal Lee?
Right. Well, just as you just pointed out, Vernon, that America is going to feel it because the thing is that we have some very good workers in America
Mm-hmm.
that have been contributing. And I've seen so many videos and so many reports of American
Mm-hmm.
businesses suffering because workers are not showing up or the workers are being incarcerated or being detained. And
Oh,
so we're going to see, yes, we're
mm-hmm.
seeing even all the industry. We're talking about construction, we're talking about agriculture. Remember, we have to eat. And there's certain
Yes,
people,
yes.
even though they were saying that immigrants are taking away their jobs, that's a lie because there are a lot of those jobs now, those openings in the
Mm-hmm.
construction business, in the agriculture, in the hotel, those spaces are open. Most Americans don't want those jobs. So that was a blatant misrepresentation to say that immigrants are coming here and stealing. That's the word that they've been using,
Yes.
stealing American jobs when there are now all those vacancies and American countries are suffering right now. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's Opal Lee and our office in Jamaica. The phone number is 876-854-3599. That's 876-854-3599. In the United States, it's 954-358-2020. That's 954-358-2020. We're on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. Our handle is at Flow Jam Legal. That's FLOJAMLEGAL. Thanks as always, Vernon. Have yourself a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much, Opal. We have a person who called us and they listened to this program and took your advice and so on. Well, I get the liquor visa, and I guess I'll be on the way tomorrow.
Thank you.
Take care, Opal Lee. Have a good day and continue to do good. Good will follow you.